The moment you saw this title, something in you already knew it was not ordinary, and that knowing matters more than the noise around you. You may have opened this with a tired hand, sitting in the quiet of your room, while the day still looked unfinished and the heart still looked burdened. The cup beside you, the phone in your palm, the light on the wall, the weight in your chest, all of it becomes part of this hour because nothing about you is unseen. This is not a random invitation, and it is not a message passing through by accident, because the Lord knows how to speak directly to the one who has been waiting in silence. What feels delayed in your life has not escaped his sight, and what looks hidden in the natural may be preparing to speak with force in the spirit. You are not being addressed as part of a crowd, but as one person whose path has reached a turning point. There are moments when heaven does not arrive with thunder, but with a quiet certainty that settles over your breathing and refuses to leave. That is what this is for you now, a precise word wrapped in a gentle call, asking you to pay attention before the next step is taken. You have been carrying questions that no one around you fully understands, and some of those questions have sat in your body like a stone under the ribs. Yet even there, in that private pressure, God has been working with patient intention, arranging what you could not arrange for yourself. The title speaks of an offer because real mercy often comes looking like an unexpected opening, not like the shape you imagined. And when an opening comes from God, it does not beg for permission from fear. It asks for trust, and trust begins right here in this first still breath. You have likely spent many days trying to name why your path has felt slower than other people expected, and why certain doors did not open when you thought they should. In the kitchen, in the car, in the hallway, in the early silence before anyone else woke up, you have rehearsed what you would say if your life finally made sense. But there was always that inner pause, that quiet resistance, as if your spirit knew the story was not finished yet. The delay has not been emptiness. It has been the space where discernment was being built. You were not ignored in the waiting, and you were attention. You need to prepare now. I put together an exclusive resource for those who feel set apart for something greater, but live surrounded by noise, distractions, and mental overload. This is a 30-day journey that will transform your life, a guided path to armor your mind and prepare for what's coming with daily practices of focus, boundaries, and discipline. Stop negotiating with the noise. Learn to spot distractions before they control you, and strengthen your mind. Also available in an immersive audio version. Over 10 Zuru readers have already transformed their lives through the 30-day journey. Thousands of people have already started this transformation. People like you who are tired of living in the fog. Ordinary people who decided to stop accepting mental chaos. Take advantage of this limited time offer only this month. Access your link just below in the pinned comment. Not abandoned in the stretching. The Lord often protects a chosen one by refusing the easy path, because the easy path can look like speed while hiding loss. That is why you have felt both restless and restrained, both hopeful and wary, both ready and unfinished. There were moments when you looked at other people's progress and wondered whether you had missed your time. But the heart of God does not work by panic. He prepares, he positions, he steadies, and then he opens what was always his to open. Even now, while the room around you may look normal, your inner life has been answering a deeper call. The body knows when something holy is near, and that is why your shoulders have been carrying a truth your mouth has not fully spoken. It is not a punishment to be prepared slowly. It is a kindness that keeps you from entering too early, and what you are feeling in this hour is the weight of readiness gathering before the revelation. There is a kind of quiet that arrives before an important change, and it often feels less like peace and more like pressure with purpose. You may have noticed that your sleep has been lighter, your thoughts more alert, your reactions less patient with what used to entertain you. The same songs, the same conversations, the same habits do not rest on you the same way anymore. And that is not a small thing. It means the inside of you is already moving ahead of the outside of you. When you sit down at night and stare at the ceiling, or when you wash your hands and feel the water running cold over them, something deeper is speaking than your current circumstances. The old language of delay no longer explains everything, because a new kind of recognition has begun. You are starting to sense that what once felt like interruption may have been instruction. The Lord can use a pause to separate what is genuine from what only looked urgent. He can let one route close so that your feet do not wander into a future that would drain you. That means the pressure you feel is not proof of abandonment, but of alignment taking shape. What has been uncomfortable may be the mercy you needed, even if you would not have chosen it for yourself. There is tenderness hidden in correction, and there is protection hidden in redirection. This is how chosen lives are often handled, not by spectacle, but by inner reordering. And as that reordering continues, you may notice less appetite for confusion and more hunger for truth. That hunger itself is a sign that the offer is nearing you. The offer that is coming is not merely about receiving something pleasant. It is about receiving what changes the road beneath your feet. Some openings look small at first, like an envelope on a table, a message waiting on a screen, a conversation that seems ordinary until it is not. Yet the hand of God can place destiny inside what other people would overlook. You may not have seen it that way when your heart was tired, but the simple thing often carries the deepest shift. There is a door, and it is not made of spectacle. It is made of obedience, timing, and the strange peace that follows when something finally fits. The Lord does not need to overwhelm you to guide you, because His wisdom can arrive in a sentence, in a delay, in a name that keeps returning, in a moment that will not leave your mind. What is being offered to you now may require a response before fear has time to argue. That is why hesitation feels so heavy in this hour. The old life wants to negotiate, to delay, to ask for one more sign, one more proof, one more day. But the new path does not always allow endless bargaining. It asks you to recognize what is already being placed in your hands. This is not about pressure from people, and it is not about a promise of ease. It is about the gentle severity of grace, the kind that arrives and says your former route cannot hold you anymore. If you receive what is being placed before you, the road changes. If you resist it, the restlessness stays. Either way, the moment is real, and your spirit already knows that reality. This is why the next step cannot be treated casually, as if every invitation were the same and every opportunity were equal. You have lived long enough to know that some doors ask nothing from you but time, while others ask for a whole new level of honesty. There is a difference between waiting and refusing to move. There is a difference between patience and fear dressed as caution. You may feel that difference in your chest when you read these words, a slight tightening that turns into a recognition you cannot explain away. The gift in front of you may not look like the life you first imagined, but it may be the life that finally fits the person you have become. That is the tension you are standing in now. The former self wants certainty before surrender, while the deeper self already senses the shape of blessing. The Lord is not asking you to pretend you are fearless. He is asking you not to let fear have the final word. A chosen path often includes moments where the next yes feels heavier than the last no. Yet heaviness is not always a warning. Sometimes it is the dignity of a turning point. You are standing near one of those turns. If you step forward, the story opens. If you stay still, The lesson still continues, but the path remains narrow. Grace is not forcing you, but it is waiting with intention. And the offer, once seen clearly, stops being an abstract possibility and becomes a real responsibility. Look at how your mind has changed when the same people speak the same words, but they no longer carry the same authority over you. That shift did not happen by chance. It happened because something in you began to hear from a deeper place. You may be able to feel it while sitting at your desk, while holding your keys, while standing before a mirror and noticing that your face carries more weariness than you once admitted. Even fatigue can become a teacher when the soul is being trained to stop living by old permissions. The Lord has a way of reducing the power of what once dominated you without making a spectacle of it. Suddenly, the distraction feels thinner, the argument feels smaller, the fear feels less convincing, not because the storm disappeared, but because your inner anchor has been lowered into a firmer place. That is why you are less able to tolerate what used to keep you stuck. Something greater is demanding your attention now. The offer is not only about what comes to you, but about who you become when it arrives. It asks for maturity, and maturity sometimes feels like grief because you must release the comfort of familiar limitation. Yet this release is not loss in the spiritual sense. It is room for movement, room for truth, room for a future that does not collapse under old patterns. When the Lord places a new way before you, He also gives you the inner strength to walk it. That strength may feel quiet, but it is real. There is a line between what your eyes can confirm and what your spirit has already started to recognize, and you are standing close to that line now. The object on the table, the message on the screen, the unfinished task in front of you, all of it can become a witness to this moment if you let it. The ordinary setting around you is not a distraction from the message. It is the setting in which the message is being delivered. You have been trained by many small disappointments not to rush, and that training has its purpose. But there comes a point when caution has done all it can do, and faith must begin to move. The offer that comes from God does not always arrive in the language of excitement. Sometimes it arrives in the language of peace that does not go away. Sometimes it arrives with a strange clarity that says, this is different, this one is for you. The heart can recognize that difference before the mind has finished processing it. That is why you should not ignore the quiet confidence that keeps returning, even after you try to dismiss it. This is not the moment to over-explain your way out of obedience. This is the moment to notice that something holy has been placed within reach. You have asked for change, but change always requires a doorway. And doorway is a word with a cost, because it means the life behind you is no longer the life ahead of you. Still, the promise remains. Still, the path is open. Still, the hand that leads you is trustworthy. If even one part of this is landing in a place you cannot fully explain, write 888 in the comments and come back to me. That number is not magic, and it is not a formula. It is a quiet sign of overflow, a small witness that what was spoken has been received. Sometimes the smallest written agreement becomes the first honest step of a larger surrender. Your hand typing it says what your mouth has been too tired to say out loud. It says you are listening, and listening changes the atmosphere around a person. So write 888 in the comments and then return to this moment with the same steady breath. Do not treat it as a performance. Treat it as recognition. There are times when faith begins as a simple mark on the page and then grows into a decision inside the heart. What has been spoken over you is not meant to vanish as soon as the video ends. It is meant to remain with you like a lamp in a dark corridor, showing you where the next step waits. And as you come back to me now, keep noticing the peace that grows when you stop resisting the obvious. The offer is still here, and the next paragraphs will show you why it feels so personal. What has been rising around you is not random movement, but a pattern that keeps pointing in one direction. You have probably felt it in the way certain conversations dried up, in the way some plans lost their shine, in the way your appetite for shallow things began to disappear. That is how a life is prepared when God is preparing to hand it something stronger. The old arrangement starts to loosen before the new one can settle. You may have felt this loosening in your body, especially in the tired places, the places that no longer have the same energy for pretending. The Lord often begins by making the familiar feel less livable. Not to punish you, but to rescue you. There is mercy in the fact that what once held you is no longer enough. There is mercy in the restlessness that refuses to let you stay asleep inside a smaller story. You can sense that this season is not asking for more noise, but for more truth. The truth is that the offer before you may require a surrender of the version of yourself that learned to survive by delaying every decision. Survival kept you safe, but it also kept you small. Now the Spirit is inviting you into something steadier, something that does not depend on anxiety to keep moving. The path ahead is not built on panic. It is built on trust, and trust is chosen one step at a time. The sign is not only in what is changing around you, but in what is changing inside your own reactions. The small irritation, the sharper discernment, the sudden inability to laugh off what once wounded you, all of it reveals that you are not who you were. When you lean back in a chair and rub your eyes, when you stop mid-sentence because something does not sit right anymore, that is not weakness. That is clarity growing teeth. A chosen person cannot stay loyal to every atmosphere, every conversation, every old allegiance. At some point, the inner life begins to reject what contradicts its calling. You may feel lonely in that process, but loneliness and cleansing are not the same thing. God can separate you without isolating you. He can prune without breaking you. He can remove what clings to you so that the future does not arrive crowded. This is why the offer ahead of you may come with both relief and tension. Relief, because it ends a long season of uncertainty. Tension, because it asks you to leave behind familiar scripts. Yet the tension is not proof that the path is wrong. It may be proof that the path is real. A false thing often asks for less integrity than a true thing does. And what is being offered to you now is real enough to ask for your whole attention. Hold that thought as the metaphor of the road begins to deepen, because the road is not outside you only. It is also within you, being formed step by step. Imagine a narrow road after rain, the kind that shines under a grey sky and reflects the poles, the wires, the trees, and the movement of a passing vehicle. Imagine standing beside it with your shoes a little damp, feeling the ground hold the memory of every tire that passed before you. That road is how this season feels, marked by what went before, yet open to what comes next. You have walked on roads that seemed to promise much and delivered confusion, and you have learned not to trust every clear path. So when a new road appears, you do not rush it. You look, you breathe, you listen, and your body tells you whether the ground is steady. The offer from God often feels like that road after rain, not because it is slippery, but because it is newly visible. It catches the light in ways the dry ground never does. It reveals direction you could not see from the old place. And if you have been waiting for a sign big enough to erase your hesitation, you may not get one that large. Instead, you get enough light for the next step, enough light for obedience, enough light for courage to become practical. The road does not need to show the whole journey at once. It only needs to hold your foot where it lands. That is how trust works when the Lord is leading. He does not always explain the destination before he asks for movement. He gives clarity in portions, so your dependence stays alive, and the road, once seen this way, is no longer a threat. It is an invitation that does not shout. It waits. As that road begins to move before your inner eyes, there are things you will be tempted to drag with you that do not belong to the next stretch. You know what those things are, even if you have not named them yet. They are the old self-protections, the old resentments, the old habit of preparing for disappointment before joy can settle. They are the voices that say, not too much hope, not too much expectation, not too much confidence, because the last time you believed, you were hurt. But the Lord is not leading you by the memory of what failed. He is leading you by the truth of what remains. The road ahead cannot be walked with both hands full of old fear. Some things must be put down before you can receive what has been offered. You may feel the cost in your wrists, in your shoulders, in that place where effort becomes exhaustion. Yet that very sensation is revealing what has been carried too long. The offer is not asking you to become reckless. It is asking you to become available to truth, available to peace, available to a new weight that does not crush you. The path may still be narrow, but it is not barren. There is room there for provision, for wisdom, for the kind of companionship that does not compete with your calling. What you release is not wasted. It clears the way for what is coming. The most difficult part of a turning point is not always the step itself, but the moment before the step, when every old excuse tries to sound reasonable. You may hear those excuses in your own mind while you are making coffee, while your fingers hover over a message, while you stare at a door you have not yet opened. They arrive dressed as caution, but they are often fear keeping its seat. There is a difference between wisdom and delay, and you are learning to tell the difference more clearly now. Wisdom knows when to wait and when to move. Delay keeps asking for tomorrow what God has already prepared for today. That is why the offer before you carries both invitation and accountability. It is not meant to flatter you into action. It is meant to awaken you to the seriousness of grace. The hand of God does not always give second chances in the same shape twice. Sometimes the shape is different because you are different. Sometimes the same door appears with a new threshold, and the question is not whether the door is real, but whether you are willing to cross it. Crossing changes a person. Staying outside also changes a person, but not in the same way. One path expands you, the other preserves your hesitation, and the spirit within you is already leaning toward expansion. There is a reason your soul has grown quieter around things that once made a lot of noise. The loudness of the old life was not always joy. Sometimes it was distraction, covering a deeper ache. Now, in the stillness of a late evening or a slow morning, you may be feeling the ache more honestly. That honesty is not failure, it is readiness. The road after rain looks long because the light reflects every distance, but that same light also shows where it is safe to place each step. You do not need to run toward the offer. You need to receive it with clean hands. Clean hands are not perfect hands. They are hands no longer gripping what must be left behind. This is how the Lord prepares you for a change that can actually hold. He allows the old confidence to thin out so that a truer confidence can emerge. Not confidence in yourself alone, but confidence in the one who has been arranging this all along. You may still feel trembling, and trembling does not disqualify obedience. In fact, trembling often shows that the moment matters. The road is open. The offer is near. The next move is not hidden from the God who brought you this far. If the road I just described is the one you can feel under your feet, write "I see it" in the comments and come back to me. That phrase is a quiet witness, a present tense agreement that the recognition has become clear enough to name. When you write it, you are not trying to impress anyone. You are sealing what your heart has already admitted. There is power in simple honesty, because simple honesty refuses to pretend the sign was small. So write "I see it" in the comments, and then return to this flow with your spirit still awake. What you name, you begin to own. What you own, you can no longer ignore. And what you no longer ignore becomes part of your obedience. The road does not need you to understand every turn before you step onto it. It only needs you to stop arguing with what is already visible. Keep breathing with that awareness, because the next movement is not a new message, but a deeper unfolding of the same one. The offer is still the center. The road is still the image, and your response is becoming part of the message itself. You have probably noticed how a road looks different once you start walking it instead of studying it from afar. The same bend that felt uncertain becomes manageable when your own footsteps begin to gather on it. That is the kind of change this season is asking of you. Not perfect certainty, but movement. You may have thought the offer would arrive with a trumpet, a dramatic interruption, a public sign no one could miss. Yet often God works through quieter means, because quiet obedience is easier to sustain than noisy excitement. The road after rain does not shout its safety, it reveals it as you go. That is the spiritual pattern here. You are not being asked to perform confidence, you are being asked to walk honestly. The confidence will grow from the walking. The fear that once dominated your planning does not get to define the whole journey. It may speak, but it does not reign. This is where your body and your spirit begin to agree more closely. Your breathing slows when you stop fighting the idea that the offer could really be for you. Your hands relax when you stop treating the future like an enemy. Your eyes soften when you let hope return without apology. These small changes matter because they are the first evidence of inward alignment. A road can also teach you something about provision. You do not see the whole supply at once, but you keep meeting what you need where you stand. A shade tree appears, a sign appears, a companion appears, a moment of rest appears. In the same way, the offer before you may not answer every question in one breath, but it will supply enough for the next faithful move. You have been trained by hardship to look for lack first, and that training has kept you alert. But not every alertness is faithfulness. Sometimes the Lord must retrain the eye to expect provision instead of loss. That retraining can feel awkward because your old defenses protest when hope becomes practical. Still, the new road does not require you to abandon discernment. It requires you to stop assuming the worst is the most spiritual answer. There is a gentleness in that correction, and there is also authority. The path of grace is not vague. It is specific enough to walk and broad enough to carry you. So when the offer comes near, you do not need to shrink from it because it is unfamiliar. Familiarity has never been the only measure of truth. Sometimes truth comes wearing new clothes, and you recognize it not by its costume, but by the peace it leaves behind. What you are being returned to is not a fantasy. It is a steadier way of living, one that does not collapse every time the weather changes. The road after rain still holds puddles, and you still have to step around what remains wet, but the path is real, and the direction is clear. In your own life, that means there may still be unresolved pieces, unfinished conversations, and fragile places that need care. Yet none of that cancels the opening. It only means you must walk it with maturity. Maturity does not rush past what is still soft. It notices, it respects, it moves with wisdom. The offer of God is often more durable than our impulse to rush toward the emotional high of receiving it. Durability matters. You have already learned that what arrives too quickly can also leave too quickly. This road is different because it is being built under your feet as you answer it. You do not need to invent the strength. The strength is being supplied alongside the step. And that is why the path can feel both demanding and kind at the same time. Demanding because it is real. Kind because it does not ask you to become someone else before you can begin. There is a moment in every true turning where the soul stops asking whether it is allowed to hope and starts asking whether it is willing to trust. That moment often comes quietly, in between ordinary tasks. You may be folding clothes, rinsing a plate, waiting for a bus, or sitting in a parked car with the engine still warm, and suddenly you know the question has changed. It is no longer only about what happens next. It is about whether you will let the next thing find you ready. The road image has been doing its work because it reveals a truth you can feel in your feet. Movement is now part of your calling. You're not meant to camp forever where the rain first fell. You're meant to cross it. Cross it with caution, yes, but not with paralysis. Cross it with humility, yes, but not with self-erasure. Cross it as someone who has learned enough to know that delay can become a disguise for disobedience. The offer before you is not demanding perfection. It is demanding presence. To be present is to stop splitting yourself between what was and what will be. It is to stand fully in the now where God is already speaking. And when you stand there, the road becomes more than a symbol. It becomes an assignment. Attention, you need to prepare now. I put together an exclusive resource for those who feel set apart for something greater, but live surrounded by noise, distractions, and mental overload. This is a 30-day journey that will transform your life. A guided path to armor your mind and prepare for what's coming with daily practices of focus, boundaries, and discipline. Stop negotiating with the noise. Learn to spot distractions before they control you, and strengthen your mind. Also available in an immersive audio version. Over 10 Zuru readers have already transformed their lives through the 30-day journey. Thousands of people have already started this transformation. People like you who are tired of living in the fog. Ordinary people who decided to stop accepting mental chaos. Take advantage of this limited time offer only this month. Access your link just below in the pinned comment.